let's go ahead and get to our first call. I want to talk to Matt in Maryland, who has, in my opinion, a very interesting topic. Matt, what's going on?
Hey, Dan. Yeah, I usually call in with sort of philosophical stuff, but I was watching a paranormal show and thought, hey, why not have some fun?
Yes. Please, dear God, tell me what you watched on your paranormal show.
So, I'm watching one of these shows, and basically they show video clips taken by people of like different paranormal things, and some of them are like cryptids. Have you ever heard of this term, cryptids?
Oh, you know it. You know I have. Absolutely.
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, a cryptid is basically like a creature whose existence is a matter of dispute as to whether they actually exist or not. So, for example, Bigfoot would be one of those, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm watching this show, and they play a Bigfoot clip, and it's not particularly convincing to me, but one of the commentators who, they often refer to themselves as some type of expert in areas of the paranormal, makes the assertion that perhaps why Bigfoot has been so elusive could be due to the fact that he is an interdimensional being.
Yes, of course. That is the most parsimonious, best,
right?
using
and
Occam's
then
razor.
They even went on to say other things like maybe he could also be an underground creature or have powers of invisibility. Just all in a line made those assertions.
Sure. Yeah, why not? Like, look, Bigfoot, obviously, we've only seen him a couple times, and it's been really grainy and really, non-specific. So he has to, underground, invisible, interdimensional, traveler. Maybe he's a ghost also. I mean, it could be a number of things, but all these seem pretty reasonable to me. What do you think, Zod?
Boy, that's going to take a little bit of time for me to digest, I guess.
Yeah. What's up, Matt?
Yeah, what do you think about that, Zod?
I think that is definitely one of the possible explanations for why we don't see Bigfoot very often and why he tends to appear in grainy footage. Yeah, I guess.
No, see, the grainy footage thing, he's using like electromagnetic disruptors.
Or maybe it's like in Spider-Verse where everybody gets all grainy and glitchy when they travel between dimensions.
Maybe there's like a Bigfoot verse, like Spider-Verse, where there's a bunch of different Bigfoots, and that's why he looks different in each camera. Oh, this is
and
speculation
I
here.
was so disappointed too because they just said it and then just went to a different thing. And I was like, what? You're just going to hit me with that? And then no explanation or anything. But
as a general principle, if you can conceive of a creature, does that mean the less you see it, the more often it probably travels between dimensions?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Who knows?
So there's really no such thing as an indication that something doesn't exist. There are just indications that things travel between dimensions a lot.
Correct. I've seen a porcupine only a couple times in my life. So they're probably high on my list of interdimensional travelers, I'd say.
I mean, what about everyone who lives in Australia, right? I don't know if you've heard
Or Zod. Zod's the only person I know from Alaska. He could actually be an interdimensional traveler. I don't know.
We're feeding the show between dimensions.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's true. But Matt, your call when you from the call screener, you said something interesting, which was like you were asking whether this was ethical. And I didn't quite. What do you mean by that? Is it ethical?
So what I wanted to ask you about was sort of these shows, because there's quite a few of them out there now on different channels, and I just was watching this and I found myself wondering how many people are watching this, like ironically, like just as entertainment, versus to how many people they could potentially be convincing of these ideas, and then possibly corrupting their, truth detectors and that possibly leading to, maybe not intentionally bad, but you know, if you believe certain things that aren't true, particularly like in terms of, you know, with the pandemic, what we got going on, there could be potentially bad consequences. So I was kind of wondering, you know, should I be watching this? I mean, it's so entertaining, but at the same time, am I sort of tacitly supporting this?
Yeah. So
And
I've actually thought about this. Yeah, I've thought about this and I have a take on this. So first I want to say, when I was a kid, I watched kind of these ghost hunter shows and stuff with my dad. And my dad, even though he is a religious man, also has a sense of skepticism to him, which maybe I get that from him a little bit. I don't know. But like, he would watch these shows with me and I'd be like, oh, Dad, what if all this stuff is real? You know, but he would watch it kind of the same way you do, kind of ironically and just like, you know, for a laugh. But it did kind of fuel this sense of, well, maybe, you know, like what if? And I don't know whether that was good for me or not, because I think it kind of led me to be a bit more credulous about a lot of things, you know. And I had a conversation once with somebody a few years ago about tarot cards. You know, like she actively knows that tarot cards and stuff isn't real, or psychics. I'm sorry, it was about psychics. She knows that psychic stuff probably isn't real, but she likes to watch for entertainment. And I just think about, you know, yeah, I get it. They're playing for the people who make these shows, right? They're playing it for audiences who do watch this for entertainment, but they are also directly profiting off of the people who don't see this as just entertainment, but as like documentary. And I think that's unethical. I do, because if I'm going to do a show like this one, giving my honest take about something, even if it's wrong, that's not unethical because I'm not actively lying to you, right? But if I'm filming a show like a ghost hunter show and I'm actively editing things or making things look, you know, more than what they really are, then that is a form of lying. And I don't think people should make money off of that if they're doing it, you know. Like, unfortunately, it seems like a market for that is always going to be there, especially amongst Americans. But yeah, I agree with you, and I think I've come to the conclusion at this point where I couldn't support that, even as ironic, unless, you know, if I'm taking clips and I'm directly critiquing them, that's the only time I would do that, because otherwise, yeah, I don't want to support liars and charlatans or people who like abuse people's confidence, you know.
Yeah, to me, I wouldn't feel too bad watching it if I knew that, like, the people who were already convinced were just going to keep being convinced. But if they are actually convincing people who wouldn't otherwise, because it's really entertaining. I mean, it's so freaking amusing.
Yeah, I want Zod's take.
Have any thoughts on this, Zod?
Zod has some take. Real quick, I want to give a story before Zod talks, because this is a moment that woke me up a little bit about the Travel Channel specifically. Because they're a big progenitor of these shows. But I was on Bert the Conqueror when I was a kid. I was like in the background, but they came to this camp that I was at, and they had, this camp had a blob, kind of like in that movie. When was it with Will Ferrell? That summer camp movie. I can't remember. Anyway, the blob thing, you know, that you see in the summer camp movie. So they wanted to do a blob thing with Bert the Conqueror, and you know, they made us do takes, you know, and redo stuff like with the kids who were talking with him. And also they made us come up with like a rating system for cool blobs, you know, like the kids would wave up their hands, but like it wasn't, you know, there was absolutely nothing natural about the reality television process at all. And they edited to make it look like a coherent sequence of events, but really we were reshooting stuff. They were giving us lines to say. Like it really woke me up pretty early pretty much everything on reality TV is absolute garbage and fake. Well, I shouldn't say garbage. Yeah. It's entertaining, but it's like, it's not real. None of it's real. There may be some circumstances that they caught on tape that are natural, but you know, most of it is a lot of spin. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's what I think about too when I think about this. But anyway, Zod, go ahead. I interrupted you and I want you to say your piece.
Yeah, I think, you know, it could be tempting to say that anybody who buys into that is going to believe anyway. And if you look at that show and find it believable, you kind of deserve to believe in it. But I find it very problematic as well, because it's not just a matter of if they convince new people. I think one of the worst things about these shows is they give legitimacy to basically stupid, insane ideas. And we have a huge problem, especially if you have a Facebook feed, you'll know this. We have a huge problem of people who really don't have any idea how to vet good information or what good journalism looks like or how to cite sources. This isn't taught well enough in schools or colleges at all. And so anything that's on screen or appears in a story, in a news feed or whatever, if it's interesting to you, it feels valid. And so I think these shows just lend a feeling of validity to ideas that are just absolutely pointless and insane. And people who are going to believe that are then going to start believing conspiracy theories about politicians or COVID or whatever else. And so I think it does a huge disservice. It totally pollutes an already tenuous landscape in our country, especially of journalism and fact checking and stuff like that. And people who sit there and watch that, to them, that's as legitimate as any kind of news. And so I think that's a really dangerous place to be. And I think we really have no fact-based narrative in our country anymore. And now we have I won't get directed at any. We have politicians who are weaponizing that. I don't know how far down that path I need to go.
That works. That's legal. We can say that. Yeah. We live on a bad episode of the History Channel show. Like one of those just crazy. Like that was like the original Facebook. Crazy COVID-19 posts or whatever. It really did originate from that. And you know what? Like, I would not be surprised if we could draw a direct link between the United States and our ability for skepticism and the kind of television programming we have on TV. I bet we could find a correlate, because how popular are those shows, right? Like everybody's watched them at least once. I can't say that about every show on TV, but everyone's seen a ghost show. Everyone's seen, it's crazy.
And before that, you had Coast to Coast with Art Bell. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember that. But this kind of stuff has already been on there, and it's legitimately distressing to me trying to converse with people from my past and see the absolutely crazy things they believe in and their total inability to distinguish a plausibly sourced journalistic story from something that people just said. And it's I don't know how we're going to recover from it as a society, to be honest.
Trust journalism at all. We've had a consistent, if you look at the stats on it, it's like, I can't cite the exact figures, but for a number of years now, our trust in media in general has just completely gone down. And there are times where you should be skeptical, but they're also where we get our facts from. Like, everything I know what's happening in the White House is coming from some media outlet telling me, or like what's happening with political movements in this country and things like that. Like, that's how we got our information. Part of it is too, we're just getting sort of sketchy sources of information now, what with the internet and stuff. I'm telling you, for every good thing the internet does, there's like 2 bad things at least. It gets really
one trick is good journalistic sources. There are built-in safeguards, and there are mechanisms for finding and backing up information. So there is something there, but the problem is it's not always trustworthy. And so people who have a certain vested interest going into the conversation like to fall to the generalization that it's not always trustworthy, or it has a bias of some kind.
Yeah.
And it lets them just flatly dismiss it. And then they fall back to whatever just cartoonishly weird thing they found posted on the internet. And everybody just gravitates toward what they want to hear to begin with.
Yeah, these are good points too, because it kind of goes back to the whole thing that I said about the entertainment value. Is a lot of this stuff is driven by ratings and things of that sort, rather than how well vetted or valuable this potential information could be to people. And that was also another really good point you made, Zod, about potentially reconfirming existing beliefs. I hadn't thought of that. All right, well, before I go, Dan, I just want to say one thing. I was looking at the AXP and Truth Wanted channels, and I noticed AXP has like 300,000 subscribers, but y'all are only down at like 12,000 or something. So everyone out there needs to subscribe to Truth Wanted, man.
Hey, you said it, not me. All right. Thank you, Matt. Really appreciate you calling in, and a great topic for a call. I love calls like that. But yeah, truth wanted. We're a less credulous coast to coast. That's how I like to build this show. I'm Art Bell, except my voice isn't as smooth, but my logic is better. Maybe let's go with that. Yeah, ghost shows, not ethical. Or the movies too. Oh my God, how many movies are like based on a true story? You know,
yeah, before people even realize it, it gets them accepting ideas based on what's interesting to them, and then I don't even think they realize they're doing it. And now you have people seriously thinking that 5G towers are shooting whatever into your brains, and you know, it's like the more nutty it is, the more people are drawn toward it.
You're like for somehow everybody's crazy uncle has like formed a coalition and like a super PAC and is now influencing our politics. I think that's what happened. I think they all just politically organized, and now we're seeing it happen. Maybe by Bill Gates. Ooh, spooky. Wait, I don't know if Bill Gates would fund a thing to undermine himself unless that's what he wants us to think. But anyway, again, we got some really interesting calls